Hey, everybody. Welcome into The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We call it Hump Day here on the Big Factor, and I'm going to waste no time. So excited to introduce our guest today, Max Loeb, founder of Loeb's Leads, as well as host of On to the Land with our guy, Chef Zay. We know Chef Zay here at Big Play. Common guest on The Return with Josh and Maria Cribbs. Love Chef Zay. Max, how you doing today, brother? Happy Wednesday.
I am great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm pumped to be here, talk Browns, talk everything going on in the sports world. It's kind of a weird spot because it's the off season now, but definitely some cool things going on. Crazy game on Sunday. I'm sure you guys have talked about that a bunch, but pumped to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we'll start there. Lots to talk about. We'll start with Browns and Myles Garrett. I had a video out on Twitter yesterday that got a little bit picked up from the aggregators on Browns Twitter, of course. Jameis Winston was on, I believe it's Over the Edge, something along the lines with Cameron Jordan. Oh, great movie, not Over the Hedge. Don't think Cam Jordan was in that one. Basically, Jameis talks about, well, he didn't think the Browns was a dysfunctional organization. They didn't appear that way in the 1 year that he was here. But he goes on to say that Myles, in response to that, said, hey, Jameis, you've never been a part of an 0-16 season. Max, yet to talk about you about this Myles Garrett situation, him requesting a trade. What were your initial thoughts? We'll start there about Myles Garrett requesting a trade out here in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think my initial thoughts, it wasn't wildly shocking, to be honest with you. Like, I not expected it, but if it were to have happened this offseason based on the reports during the season where you were saying, you know, if Myles can't agree to a blueprint with the front office, then he's out. It wouldn't have shocked me if it happened. I was a little more shocked of how public it was. I don't think it's like the wrong thing to do, especially if they've had internal discussions already. I don't think it was the wrong thing to make it public, but I did not expect to wake up to that at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. But it's a weird spot for Myles because I truthfully do think the Browns have more leverage in this situation, and apparently Andrew Berry isn't even like picking up the phone for these calls, so it could get really ugly really fast. I'm terrified for how it's going to go, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you know, at least from my experience, what I see is a lot of people, at first they were understanding that Myles Garrett's an ultimate competitor. He got his DPOY. Now he wants to go get a ring, and he doesn't feel as though he can do that here in Cleveland. Mainly why? Because we need a quarterback, but amongst other reasons, of course. And a lot of people, it seemed like, in a way, turned on Myles Garrett after his appearance on Radio Row and even the ESPN halftime show before the Super Bowl. How do you feel about that? Do you blame, or can you blame fans for kind of feeling that way and turning on him, or do you feel as though Myles had every right to go speak what he thought was or thinks is his truth?
He absolutely has every right to go say whatever he wants. That is number one, the most important thing. I don't necessarily blame fans or really anybody for feeling some type of way about it because, I mean, it's a guy that you've had beloved in your heart as a Cleveland Brown since however long he's been drafted. But, like, at some point you got to realize that these guys have been giving their all to this team, and it is a dysfunctional franchise. It's a wild, wild west in terms of how you think the season's going to go and then how it actually goes. You never really know. Walked into this season thinking it was going to be better. Wasn't great. Walked into last season thinking it was going to be bad, and it was very good. So I don't necessarily blame Browns fans for feeling some type of way about it. Myles Garrett can do whatever he wants. I also think the most important thing or the most interesting thing about this was one of the first interviews he did on Radio Row. He was very quiet about this after the season. He took about a month, didn't really say anything to the media, definitely didn't push for a trade, at least in the public eye, and he said something to the effect of, I wanted to be fully emotionally disconnected or disassociated. And if you just watch him talk in those interviews, he is so disconnected, disassociated emotionally with the Browns. It's not even funny. So to me, that's like the biggest sign of, okay, this guy's ready to be out. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter how, he's ready to go.
I want to get everyone's opinion on this. Do you guys believe that Myles Garrett requesting this trade, and let's say it ultimately he gets dealt, because I think that's the way that things are going to play out. Do you think this makes the Browns and Andrew Berry, who I'm assuming will be the guy making the pick, if he's not fired at this point, I'd be surprised if he is. Do you think it makes them more likely or less likely to draft a quarterback at 2?
More like, I don't think either. I think this is its own thing, especially because they had to meet with him and give him kind of a plan. And I said this on yesterday's episode, I imagine they sat down with them and they laid out a couple different outlines, or as our president would say, concepts of a plan, because they could go the path, or especially if Myles was here, of pairing him with Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter and kind of having that be, building up a stout defense defense and doing it kind of the way that the Eagles did it. Or they probably showed him a path of, hey, we're going to, really consider Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders with the second pick, and you'd be playing with another rookie quarterback here in Cleveland. It sounds like he didn't like any of those paths, especially with, Ryan, what you shared last night with Jameis Winston talking about it. And I thought it was interesting that Myles had told Jameis, you never went 0-16. So if he's still holding 0-16 against the Browns, this is a guy that's dug in. This is a guy, Max, like you said, is detached from this entire thing. Like he's looking at his situation and what these entire last 8 years in Cleveland have been, and they've been bad. He's been in the league for 8 years. He's worn a Browns uniform for 8 years. He has one true playoff, appearance with Baker Mayfield, and then a Joe Flacco magic carpet ride that never really had much momentum to go much further than what it did anyhow. So if you're Myles Garrett, you're looking at this entire situation, not just what this last year and what this next year is going to be. Like, they've been a bad organization since he's worn the uniform.
Yeah, I mean,
it sucks.
It does suck. And I mean, you're looking at a guy who was the heir apparent in terms of the best player hands down on the team after Joe Thomas. And you watch Joe Thomas, a decade to this team, All-Pro, Hall of Famer, who never had a single playoff game, which, by the way, you could say that a million times. It doesn't get any less crazy. Yeah. Myles doesn't want that to be his future, I suppose. So I understand it. And it does seem like money, no matter what, they could throw $1 bajillion that way, give him 80 million Dogecoin, and he's not staying here. It seems like it's written in the stars that, like Max said, he's dug in. And how can you blame the guy? But I wonder if after watching that Super Bowl, I don't think so, but after watching Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Zach Bond, the linebacker, just absolutely feast after Patrick Mahomes, is that kind of going back to the formula for winning a Super Bowl? You got to get back to the quarterback. Do you think there's any way you could convince Myles that if Abdul Carter is the pick, you have Mike Hall in his second year, that could change things?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think even with Myles Garrett, and maybe this is me really showing my bias, planting my flag. I think everybody, I really want a quarterback with the second pick. I mean, if they draft Abdul, I think Myles understands as well that if they draft Abdul Carter, and either try to convince us that Kirk Cousins or Daniel Jones is the answer for next. I mean, they're playing to win 3 or 4 games if that's what they do. They had Myles, they went 1-15. They drafted Myles Garrett and went 0-16. Yeah. We've just in the last decade, we've just done the drafted defensive end and then wait on your quarterback. Let's try it different this time. Let's get the quarterback and then build, the defensive line, the offense. You got to keep taking stabs, especially if you're Andrew Berry, and you can't afford another 3-win season. You just can't.
Nick, the thing that I keep coming back to in my head also is that it just couldn't be more of perfect timing. This upcoming NFL draft for the Cleveland Browns.
What you did there.
I mean, it could not be perfect timing to do this better than right now and take your kid number 2 overall.
Yeah. All right. Well, that makes me got to ask then. I know we're still months away, but Max, are you on the quarterback train, best player available? What's your mindset headed into April?
I think it has to be quarterback, to be honest with you, for a couple reasons. Number one, I think if you just philosophically, not just the Browns, but any type of organization that you have a GM on the hot seat, a head coach. I mean, I don't think Stefanski should be on the hot seat, but kind of on the hot seat. You can almost buy yourself more time by taking a quarterback and giving yourself a 2 to 4 year project with this guy. Now, that philosophically should push them to a quarterback. I think Shedeur Sanders specifically fits Kevin Stefanski's scheme extremely well. You talk about decision making, you talk about getting the ball out quick, arm talent. I think he fits the scheme extremely well. I think it's gotten to a point where with Shedeur that people see him in the media, they see how he acts, and, valid concerns, very, very valid concerns. I'm not saying there's not. But it makes us forget how talented he is. This guy is an unbelievable football player who's moderately young, has never stepped foot in the NFL, had a dad in the NFL, but has never stepped foot in the NFL. And at the end of the day, you're drafting a kid. You're not drafting a 30-year-old vet. You're drafting somebody to grow into a professional in this field. College football is different than the NFL in terms of the professionality of it, how often you do certain things with your teammates. It's a completely, completely different world. If you were to draft a kid, you're going to mold him into at least what you think or what you hope he could become as a professional. So if you believe you can do that and you see the talent with Shedeur Sanders, I don't think you should hesitate. I think you pull the trigger right away. I don't know if Tennessee thinks the same. I don't know if they like Cam Ward more. I don't know if they go Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, whatever. But if a quarterback is there, and I don't want to pigeonhole the Browns into Shedeur Sanders, but him or Cam Ward, I think you do it. I think you do it. You don't think twice about it.
It's interesting to think about how the narrative would be maybe different, how the outlook on Shedeur would be different if he wasn't a Sanders, right? And I understand that that's a big part of his success.
Yeah.
Like, he went to Colorado, his dad was the head coach, and getting brought up by Hall of Famer, I'm sure that led to a lot of his success. But I wonder how he would be looked at by GMs, Andrew Berry specifically, and that's their job. They have to decipher the hype, the name, with the talent, and if he deserves to be the second overall pick in the draft. And I don't know about you guys, but the faith meter in Andrew Berry for a lot of the Cleveland faithful is pretty low at this point. And I think it's a fair criticism, the failure to draft. However, are you guys a little more lenient because this is going to be the first true quarterback, first-round quarterback that will be an Andrew Berry pick for the Cleveland Browns?
No, when I saw Perion Gunfrey pin someone at gunpoint on the side of the streets in downtown Cleveland, that's kind of when I figured out that he wasn't great at drafting people. So, yeah, no, I'm totally fine with him not making the selection. Seems this way now.
Well,
that
he's going
he
to.
will. He will. I know he will, but I wouldn't say that I'm putting a lot of my eggs in the AB basket at this point in time.
And
I'd rather
that's-
have the other AB, honestly.
and it
CT ESPN.
Wow, CT shout out. And that's why, like, I think people are saying that, like, you know, just do the safe thing and draft Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, the generational
where does that
talent.
get you?
That's not the safe thing, I don't think. I think the safe thing is drafting a quarterback.
And wouldn't you rather be able to say you took a swing, you failed on Shedeur, you go back, draft a quarterback next year, rather than saying you took a swing on Abdul Carter, who you thought was going to be a generational edge rusher for sure thing, and imagine that doesn't pan out. How does that look now?
Yeah, and then we see that happen with quarterbacks all the time. The amount of, you know, first-round turnover. The Jets gave Zach Wilson like a year and a half, and they were like,
Josh Rosen.
This guy ain't it. Yeah, Josh Rosen barely got a year, and he was like, this guy ain't it. And we also know how this works. You know, like, if Shedeur Sanders is the number 2 overall pick, and, you know, he probably sits for maybe a couple weeks and then starts, you know, the second half of his rookie year or whatever it might look like, and he doesn't play well, that's probably it for Andrew and Kevin. And the next regime would be looking to draft their own guy. That's just fair or unfair, whether you like that or not. That's just the reality of how the league works.
That's what I was going to ask Max.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, and Kevin, not that he's on the hot seat like you mentioned earlier, but at a certain point,
He
if we're sitting
definitely
with 8 losses in the middle of next season, he's had 2 years under 500. There's only so much we can do for the guy. Would you have any more, if you're in Coach Kevin's shoes, would you have any more pressure to start Shedeur from week 1 just to see what you have? Because who's to say if you don't go 1-4 with Kirk Cousins or whoever, you're not out the door?
That is a very
That's a
good
good point.
I don't think it would be pressure to start Shedeur. I think it would be pressure to not be afraid to, pressure to not bench him, because the very traditional thought now is guys like Drake May, Bo Nix came in and started, but guys who have waited a little bit to start, you know, they come in and, to me, there isn't a wild difference in terms of their overall production, but it could get to a point in training camp where you see Shedeur Sanders, and let's say it's Jameis Winston and it's Daniel Jones in your quarterback room, whatever it looks like. You see those guys and you think, wow, Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback we have in this room. But do we start him week 1? Is he ready to play week 1? I think he would feel pressure to avoid that situation where, like, well, you know, traditional thinking says we bench him till week 6. Like, I think he would feel pressure to avoid that situation instead of just throwing him out there, because if he feels he's the best quarterback, he should throw him out there 100%. And I don't think any Browns fan should disagree with that.
We got to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to talk about something along the lines of Andrew Berry, pertaining to next year, as well as we talked about Shedeur Sanders, but I want to talk about the other rookie quarterbacks in this draft class. CBS, they polled 6 scouts. They gave them their superlatives heading into next year. We'll talk about that and more when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody, welcome back into the Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. We're brought to you today and every day, of course, by our great friends at Fairway Ford, Ohio. Fairway Ford is the biggest Ford truck dealership in the state. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s as well as Super Duty trucks, and I promise you they will not be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. Do not let a short drive to Canfield prevent you from saving thousands, yes, that's thousands, on your new truck. Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, lowest pricing, as well as the same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com. That's fairwayfordohio.com. All right, before we get into the 2025 rookie quarterback draft class, I want to end this Andrew Barry Brown's conversation with this. Can you not foresee a scenario? Cleveland goes ahead, you draft Shedeur Sanders, maybe Cam Ward if he falls to you. One of the two. You roll into next year. Shedeur looks okay. Cam Ward looks okay. Rookie expectations. However, you have a losing record. You miss the postseason. Will Jimmy Haslam have the gumption, with all the fans calling for Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski's job, of another losing season, missing the playoffs? Does he have the kahunas to keep them around for yet another season?
I think if it's really bad, I think you almost have to. And I know it's a very, he's got to do it. He's got to have it. Like, I think if it's really bad, you do. But at the same time, if it's, a 7-win season, an 8-win season, this is part of the philosophy I think Andrew Barry would have going into this draft. Like, I can preserve myself for another year if we're hovering around 500, if Shedeur is good, if Cam Ward is good. And he doesn't even have to be special. Like, if you draft a rookie quarterback and you're able to sustain some type of success, maybe this is without Myles Garrett too. And I think that could play a big part in this. If you sustain some type of success without Myles Garrett, would bolster it up even more. You're preserving a year for yourself. It would almost have to be as bad as this year, I think, for Barry to draft a rookie quarterback and then get the boot.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because we know here in Cleveland how bad we are, how hungry we are for the playoffs. And while you want to just ship away a regime in another year where it's considered a down year, I mean, when you're looking at this as a rebuild, whether you like it or not, you can call it a fast rebuild, you can call it a full, slow 3-4 year rebuild, you're probably going to have a losing record next season. I don't see a rookie coming in here or a veteran coming in here and taking us to the playoffs. I just don't see it happening, especially if you're without Myles Garrett.
I think you got to just see how it plays out. Like that, I think right now it's impossible to say. Like, and even if it was, say they won 6 games, because the defense is bad, you don't have Myles Garrett, but Shedeur Sanders looks to be the real deal, in however many games that he wound up playing, and it's, probably a pretty easy decision to keep Kevin and Andrew, or the inverse, if he comes in and looks maybe a little shaky, then it might be a little bit easier. I will say that this time it's a little bit easier because we've seen Kevin Stefanski have success. We know that he can coach. Whereas like Hugh Jackson, when they drafted Baker Mayfield, was just a flat out lame duck. Like we knew when Commissioner Goodell read the name Baker Mayfield off the card that Hugh Jackson probably wasn't going to be the guy coaching him for the next 5 years. We knew that something else was going to happen. And that's not the case here. I think Kevin in this draft is looking to find his Drew Brees. He's looking to find his guy that he can tie himself to for at least the remainder of this contract extension that he just signed, which would be 3 more seasons. And I think that's what the Browns would try to hope to get out of a Shedeur Sanders. Like, we talked a little bit about like Shedeur's talent and stuff, and I think he'd be a good fit with the Browns. I do think the Browns are gonna really fall in love with like the football IQ. That's what they lauded Deshaun Watson about, with a 30-minute meeting in Houston and a couple of like football clips on an iPad. Like that, so like imagine what they're gonna be able to get and the amount of insight they're gonna be able to get with these top 30 visits. And Shedeur is gonna fly to Cleveland and participate those in Berea. Like I think they're gonna fall in love with him. But the Denver Broncos just gave us the blueprint of how to move off the Deshaun thing. So there's a whole aspect of that too. Whether they love Shedeur and they think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, or could this be the guy that you strap in and you hold on to the steering wheel as tight as you can because that bump sign is very big and you just got to hit the speed bump. I think that plays into it too.
I got to get this off my chest, and let me know what you guys think. And God, I hope this is not the thought process of Jimmy Haslam. It's about as good of a done deal as you can have. The Browns are going to Brook Park.
Yeah.
Does drafting a guy like Shedeur Sanders, does Jimmy see this as, well, I could draft Shedeur Sanders, he'll get me selling tickets, he'll get us sold out crowds and hope again. and keep these fans just a little bit hanging on until we can get them over to Brook Park.
Could be. I mean, that, or I think, that's got to be in the background of their mind always. But, or how cool would it be, if, Shedeur worked out and then like you're debuting Brook Park with your franchise quarterback who would at that point just be stepping into his prime. So I think there's a lot of, prime, no pun intended. I think there's a lot of, angles that you could look at this draft. And I think all of us in this room at least are kind of like talking ourselves and kind of talking into everybody watching, that quarterback is just like, if you don't figure out the quarterback, like the rest of this is all for naught. Like the rest of this is all, we're really just like sitting here kidding ourselves if they don't, if they roll out, Max, your quarterback room of like, and we had a ball with Jameis Winston all year, at this company, but like, dude, if they roll out Daniel Jones and Jameis Winston and DTR as the three QBs, or Will Howard, in the 4th round, like, come on, we're fooling ourselves here.
You don't think Will Howard's a generational talent?
Dude, you know what I saw?
I am not a Will Howard.
I saw some stuff this morning. I don't know where this came from because I had a kind of like a raucous morning getting up here. I saw a couple like tweets this morning, so take that with a grain of salt. That like, don't be surprised if the Browns double dipped, similar to what the Commanders did years back, where they drafted RG3 and then it was Kirk Cousins later in that draft. Like, don't be surprised if it was Shedeur and then in the 4th round Will Howard. The Browns also have currently like a billion 6th round picks. Like they own the 6th round. So that's something if they wanted to package, 3 or 4 of those 6th rounders and pop up into the 4th round again to take Will, like that's definitely something that they could do. And that's like an option that they'll have.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, I want to move on here to talking about the 2025 NFL Draft quarterback class. CBS did a survey with 6 scouting sources. The first one is, who do you personally view as the best 3 quarterbacks in this draft? Cam Ward got 4 number 1 votes, 2 number 2 votes. Shedeur Sanders, 2 number 1 votes, 4 number 2 votes. Jackson Dart comes in at number 3 with 5 votes. Jalen Milroe got 1 vote for number 3. Max, everybody who's watched this show at least once, we're a Shedeur Sanders show. Nick, Jack, and I just recently hopped on the train. I will say Nick and Jack were before me. Max, my question
I've been on since the Giants lost.
Ryan's seen the light.
I'm not even going to limit it to Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders because some people like Jackson Dart, some people like Jalen Milroe. Not as many people anymore after watching him throw at the pro day. But Max, where do you stand on this quarterback class? Do you have any clear favorite?
It's tough because I think the way I put it, and I can do it with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and honestly Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, and I really liked what I saw from Riley Leonard. We'll talk about him.
Let's go.
You see Riley Leonard, I see Josh Allen.
Taysom
I don't
Hill,
know
baby.
about all that.
Taysom Hill, baby.
But, like, I look at Cam Ward. Cam Ward is the system. Shedeur Sanders would be a perfect fit for the right system. And I honestly think it's the same with Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe can be your system. And I have some doubts about it, but not as many doubts as a lot of other people. Jackson Dart can be a great fit in your system. He has that ad-lib ability to, go make plays, go different things. But I think Riley Leonard could step in and be a good fit in the system, too. Just from watching the Senior Bowl, I mean, Jalen Milroe did not throw the football well, and those are very, very valid concerns. But, we saw a lot of the same concerns with guys like Lamar Jackson. They asked him to change positions. I don't want to compare those two, but, like, it's been done before. And I think the raw athletic ability of a guy like Jalen Milroe can't just be passed on. Like, there's somebody who is either going to need a backup quarterback or going to want to take a chance on somebody who will much, much rather take a chance on a guy with that type of athletic prowess, especially if you trust your coaching, than a guy like Jackson Dart or Riley Leonard, somebody like that. I think Jackson Dart's probably the 3rd best quarterback. I like him a lot. He played very well in the Senior Bowl. I mean, if I had a blank slate, I didn't know what my system was, and I wanted to build it around a player, probably would take Cam Ward. If I'm the Browns, honestly, if I'm the Giants, if I have a system in place, system that's at least worked in some capacity before, Shedeur Sanders, every time he gets the ball out quick, he's very, very efficient with the football, got a great arm, can do enough athletically to make plays, extend the play, get outside the pocket. But Riley Leonard fascinated me because I really couldn't tell if it was – he played really well. I think he was 6 for 7. It wasn't any, like, crazy pass or anything like that. But it was hard for me to decipher, is this guy really like that, or is this guy playing like that because he played a competitive football game like less than 2 weeks ago? That was the hardest part for me, but I think he played really well. Another guy who can step in, fit in the right system. I think Will Howard's very similar. Honestly, I worry about the arm strength, the arm talent, but I think Will Howard's very similar to Riley Leonard in that sense. But if I had to rank the top 5, probably Cam Ward number 1, Shedeur Sanders number 2, Dart 3, Milroe 4, Leonard 5, but I would not be shocked if teams were a little more aggressive who wanted to take a chance on a quarterback, swinging for Jalen Milroe.
Are we buying into Tennessee potentially passing on Cam Ward and drafting Travis Hunter?
That's a good question.
I think so, yeah.
I understand the thought that Travis Hunter might be the best prospect. He might be the best player in this draft when it's all said and done, but you have now Brian Callahan and going into his second year where you have another horrible season. Well, he's on the hot seat. I don't care if it's only your second year. You know how the NFL works. Can you really go into next year with the quarterback room of Mason Rudolph, of Will Levis? Can you expect a coach to do something with that when he's almost in an audition stage?
I've almost convinced myself in a weird, scary way that they're going to be the team that like pays the Sam Darnold price, and that could be wrong. And their GM said that all options are on the table. They could trade that pick as well. Someone could completely screw the Browns because I think like present day, if you read enough of the tea leaves, some of the signals that they're putting out, and I know people say smoke screen, like burning one of your top 30 visits on Shedeur Sanders and making that his first top 30 visit, like they like Shedeur Sanders at least enough that that's not a smokescreen. They're doing their homework on the kid, and we know that for sure. I think the one thing that could screw it all up is that if somebody traded in with the Titans, and a team like the Raiders, a team like the Jets, maybe even the Giants, is a smaller jump up just 2 spots, and they plant their flag today. We've seen teams do that. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the minute they had the number 1 overall pick, they were like, we're taking Trevor Lawrence, kind of like the draft started at 2. Same with the Bears, we're taking, Caleb Williams, the draft started at 2. So that's the one thing that could screw up all of this, is that if someone comes in and trades with Tennessee, because right now I do think that all options are on the table for them, and they're in such a rebuild, Ryan. Like they're where the Browns were, through 1-31. So if they wanted to take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, I think they might have a little bit more flexibility and wiggle room, especially because they just blew up their GM. They changed their mind really quickly. And the one person that they seem to actually really like is Callahan. So if they wanted to build the defense first right now, they at least have a little bit more time, because they don't have any expectations. Whereas the Browns, we know, had a good deal of expectations these last couple of years.
Yeah, well, we go back to the survey. They were asked, who do you like the most outside of your top 3 quarterbacks? Any of these guys do anything for you? Quinn Ewers got 2 votes. Jackson Dart, 1 vote. Kyle McCord, 1 vote. Jalen Milroe, 1 vote. Tyler Show out of Louisville, 1 vote.
So I saw Tyler Shaw play in person this year. He's not doing anything in the NFL. I'll give you that one right now. Sorry, Ty.
Nick?
None of those.
Not
names.
a Kyle McCord reunion?
No. I mean, maybe if they wanted to bring... Dude, like... all those guys would be fun, like in camp, if they wanted to bring in there, because if you think about where the Browns are at, like current present day, on February 12th, in training camp right now, they'll have Deshaun Watson, whose Achilles is in half. So you need 3, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson,
who sucks. So
you need at minimum 3 new quarterbacks to be with DTR in that room. So yeah, maybe it is something later in the draft, like a Kyle McCord would be kind of funny and would probably like piss off Buckeye fans. Like, yeah, I think, you're going to have 3 new quarterbacks, whichever way you spin it, or at least 3 different quarterbacks that aren't currently employed by the team today.
Quick theoretical for you guys.
Kellen Mond again. Remember we did Kellen Mond for like 2 years.
So Max, you're an analyst, so this doesn't count for you as much, I guess. But for you guys as Browns fans, let's just say there's a theoretical world. Some act of God happens. We take like a tackle or a D lineman, or between maybe not Abdul Carter, but like someone who the fans aren't like super duper excited about, but they're going to make a difference if that makes sense.
That'd be Mason Graham.
Yeah. Mason Graham. And they're like, you know what? DTR is the play in this year.
No.
Would you watch?
No. Would I watch? Yes, I'd watch.
Yeah, I'd watch.
But that would never
sicko.
happen.
I don't think I'd watch. You don't know, man. We don't have any salary cap space. I don't know if we can get a quarterback.
I don't even know if he'll be on the team.
I hope he's not.
I mean, if DTR is the starter next year, you could, and the Haslam family has decent, you hope a decent enough relationship with the Manning family that you'd be strapping up for Arch next year. And that's hoping and praying that Arch comes out, with the way that NIL is now, and Tennessee's a pretty, fun and attractive school to be at. there's no guarantee that he says, yeah, I'm ready to come to the NFL if next year doesn't go exactly the way that he wants it to. So then we're pushing the Drew Aller agenda again.
Nico Yamaliava, you are a Cleveland Brown.
Yeah, I just would avoid all of that. Like trying to predict 2 years from now is trying to predict a couple months from now is tough enough. Like to do a whole season of DTR and try to game something up for next year. Like I just don't want any part of that.
That would be I think the ultimate front office failure of that.
Yeah.
They're like as much as Jameis Winston has his issues, Daniel Jones has his issues. If Joe Flacco wants to play, like literally anybody, you can have so many veteran quarterbacks, but players who have been there before, who are journeymen. They're looking for a start. They're bridge guys. They will not cost you almost anything. You can bring them in to add experience. You can bring them in to produce and play well. We saw it with Joe Flacco, even Jameis to an extent. There's absolutely no way that front office would roll out. There's no way.
Yeah, I don't put much past the Browns, but that
said
might
it
be
before.
one. That's a
Yeah,
theoretical
that's true.
world I don't want to live in. We got to take another break. When we get back, Jack has a problem with somebody calling Anne Hathaway mid. I agree. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But I also want to, before that, talk real quick about Kellen Moore becoming the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, as well as Aaron Rodgers being banned from the Pat McAfee show if he would have been still a member of the Jets.
What does
We'll talk
ban
about that
mean?
more when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody, welcome back into The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone, joined by Max Loeb today. Thank you again for coming on the show. Now, I want to flip it over to Aaron Rodgers real quick before we move on from the sports world. Diana Rossini came out. It was reported that Aaron Rodgers, if he was to be a member of the Jets next season, he wouldn't be allowed on the Pat McAfee show. That doesn't necessarily shock me, and people that have a problem with it, I think, you got to remember the real world. I know it's 2025 and social media is so prevalent, but that's a business. If they don't want their star quarterback going on a public show with millions of viewers talking about, well, the team in the NFL and other sports, I don't blame them one bit. Now, the question is, and you guys can give me your opinion on that too, but I got to ask, it's the time of the year. Would you welcome Aaron Rodgers to Cleveland, Ohio?
Max, we'll start. Your guess goes first.
Honestly, yes. I don't know how realistic it is, but yes. I think there's two types of teams that are looking for quarterbacks. Teams that would really benefit from a bridge guy or a 1 or 2 year guy to either save jobs or to win now and keep people happy. Then there's teams that truly need to rebuild. I think the Browns are more in the need to rebuild sense than like keep people happy, win however many games. But if they decided they wanted to go that route, I don't know if there's a better couple-year rental, 1-2 year rental guy than Aaron Rodgers. That's the reality of it. As much as we want to say he's been down, which he wasn't. I mean, he looked worse than his MVP years, absolutely. It was almost a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio.
Yeah, he's a top 10 quarterback for most of the year last year.
He was good last year. Like, it's not – I think people just look at his MVP seasons and you're like, oh, that's not Aaron Rodgers. You're right. It's not the MVP Aaron Rodgers, but he's still probably better than what you got. The only other, like, possible potential I guess two options – Browns couldn't pay Brock Purdy, but I think if they wanted to go the Sam Darnold route, they could restructure some things to make that work for a couple years. And then Matt Stafford's the other very, very interesting one. I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and it's very, very real. He wants out or could want out. But again, I'd welcome Aaron Rodgers to Cleveland for sure. I just don't know if the Browns are there. I don't know if that's the route they're planning to go. I don't think it's the route they should go.
Nick, I'll let you go, but I don't know if I'm sold on Aaron Rodgers, but I will say if I had to pick between him and Kirk Cousins clear as day. I'm
Yeah.
picking Aaron Rodgers.
I also think too, like to kind of piggyback a little bit off what Max said, that the Browns are in kind of a developmental mode. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Kirk Cousins is one of these guys almost similar to Joe Flacco. And I know Joe Flacco is a guy around these parts that's beloved and for good reason. I don't think he like loves the idea of being a mentor. Like,
No,
I think he's a competitive guy. Rodgers, as batshit crazy as he is, I think in the last year he got served a little bit of humble pie between the Achilles injury and then last season not winning games despite playing well last season, and now we're really getting kicked off the Jets. That I think an Aaron Rodgers that would be willing to work with the rookie quarterback and understand that the Browns aren't his forever home would be a very welcomed addition. And I know, that's a hypothetical and he'd have to be on board with that plan. The Browns everybody involved would need to be on board with that plan. And that's trying to do a lot. We know that this is an organization that has trouble getting one person on board, let alone three at one time. But I'd be for it. Why not? It'd be fun. Also, too, if you're going to be bad, you might as well be fun. Yep. There's something to be said for that always. Like, that's why, like, Johnny Manziel, like, even some of the Baker stuff was like...
Jameis made football fun for a few weeks.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to be bad, you might as well have... we might as well be tuned in to Pat McAfee every Tuesday if we're going to have a 5-win season.
I mean, Jimmy Haslam knows it best. If you give them bread and circus, they won't complain. That's the way the world goes. But like you said, though, with Aaron Rodgers, I'm a little bit curious on if he would take on that kind of a mentorship role for younger guys. I feel like there was a day and a time where if you put a red button in front of Aaron Rodgers that said "Kill Jordan Love," he would have pressed it.
Yeah.
Would he really? I know he's older, so like it's not like he has like 5 years here, but would he really be down to do that?
I think he definitely has been humbled
a
pie.
little
Like, and I wonder if
bit,
it's good. Humble pie. I'll have to try it. But you go back a few years ago. Zach Wilson with the quote, "I'm going to make Aaron Rodgers' life a living hell every day in practice."
Yeah. Dumb. That was dumb.
It was dumb. And Aaron Rodgers
The
has
mom's
handled
got to
that
his
pretty
head.
well. But yeah, I mean, I could see Aaron Rodgers not maturing. The dude's 40 years old, although he could use some maturing, it seems. I could see him being more open now than maybe a few years ago to like what you said, Nick.
Yeah.
I will
It'd
say
be fun. I can't get over how fun it would be.
it would be fun. I will say, looking at that quote from Zach Wilson, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you see that, you're like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Like, I don't want to be with this guy. If you go back to last year and you listen to how Aaron Rodgers talked about Zach Wilson and Zach Wilson talked about Aaron Rodgers, there was a very good relationship there.
Yeah.
Very good relationship. And I don't think it was a coincidence that Zach Wilson played his best football. I know it wasn't great, but his best football with Aaron Rodgers there. I think Aaron Rodgers is at a point in his career, again, where he knows it's not his forever home. He's got a couple years left. He would be more open to that, especially if it's the son of NFL royalty. I think that's a very, very real thing.
Would we go on a like group squad trip to Costa Rica with them for a little ayahuasca retreat?
I would try it.
I hear that
It's like a psychedelic.
it's
right?
like I mean it's DMT, so it's
shit.
yeah, it's crazy. Like
That's the stuff that like you can't
People
drive an airplane, right? If you
smoke DMT, so it's like don't ask me why I know this. I've never done it. It's like 10 minutes, right? But to you, it feels like it could be weeks, months that you're in that. Like I've heard stories
do that to yourself?
I've heard stories of people doing DMT. Wow, we're going off the rails here. That they have a whole life in that trip. Kids, a family. They come out of it. None of it was real.
Yeah.
Imagine
Who
that.
the hell would ever subject themselves to that?
It's crazy.
Aaron
That
Rodgers,
sounds
I
like
guess.
torture, doesn't it?
And I think I think at these retreats, like you know, it's like kind of supervised, like you drink it, so it's not like something that you're like taking. Well, you are taking it, but you guys know what I mean. It's a little bit of a safer way.
At least you're not shooting it up.
Yeah. It's a little bit safer, is what I'm trying to say, and that like it's like almost like spiritual. Like I know a couple people that have done it, and like you sit there like when you come to, you know, your senses, like you sit there and you cry for like an hour because it shows you
lost your whole family, fake family.
It shows you things about like your life and like your outlook on like the world that
Maybe
like
that's why
the
Aaron hated
normal
his real
mind
family
can't
so much.
comprehend. Yeah, so like. And that's what I'm saying. Like maybe this offseason, like Rodgers goes to Costa Rica and gets so high that he convinces himself that coming to Cleveland is a good idea. And
Well, what if there's a world where, like, when the Dilly Dilly fridges came out, there was some ayahuasca in those puppies? we woke up and Deshaun Watson was never the quarterback.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
Baker, we're all just living in the simulation. We're about to wake up week 4, Baker's first career start, and
maybe.
Deshaun Watson was never here. We were all just on a bad trip, folks. We're all good. Woof woof.
No fours
Maybe.
down. That would be nice. All right, we got to take one more break when we get back. I hinted at it. We didn't get to it yet, but we will on the other side of this break. Anne Hathaway, calling her mid. That's kind of crazy. Jack has a problem. Also, Kodak Black
Wild.
needs some help. I don't know if Kanye's the guy to do
I
it, but
know.
he's trying to help him out. We'll talk about that and more when we wrap this bad
is
boy
he?
up here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone, joined, of course, today by Max Loeb. Huge shout out to him for joining us. Jack, this is your segment. I have a problem with it, too, but you brought this up. I mean, absolutely crazy statement. Somebody said Anne Hathaway is mid, Jack. I don't know the definition of mid anymore, I suppose.
Is my eyesight that bad?
Yeah.
I can't even see that text.
Jack,
mean,
how old is she? Do you know?
She's
right
gotta be
now,
in her 40s,
she's
yeah.
got to be hanging around 40, yeah.
Okay.
And she looks better than most people on this planet ever will. I mean, you know, there's the classic phrase, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, wherever the hell it is.
She's 42, Jack.
42.
42, yeah.
I'm not sitting here attacking anyone's looks. But for you people to be out here calling out Anne Hathaway, I mean, Les Mis, she's iconic in the bat suit as well. I mean, you cannot beat Anne Hathaway. What are we doing here, folks? This is who you're attacking? Of all of the celebrities out there on the planet who wear way too much makeup, and you know that they're clearly not as good as they look as when they're on TV, you come for Anne Hathaway? She's like the prettiest one of them all. Folks, guys?
Is she married? Is this Jack shooting a shot?
Oh,
I think she's
I didn't think
married.
about that.
I think she's married.
I'm trying to find out.
Jack,
Sydney's on the way. So.
I was going to say Jack, Anne Hathaway or Sydney Thomas?
Wow. I mean, this is a tough Wednesday morning.
Oh, it's Anne Hathaway, the ageless wonder?
Yeah, no, it's Anne Hathaway.
Wow, really?
Yeah. No, yeah. And, I mean, she's also Anne Hathaway. She probably has like infinitely more money than Sydney Thomas.
Uh-oh, Jack.
You're kidding.
You're going to have to take this one up with none other than Mr. Adam Schulman, who is an actor of his own right.
Who the hell's that?
He has been in a couple of movies here. American Dreams, Song 1, The Shower, and Seesaw Monster.
Oh,
So
Jack, you're good. I've never
I
heard
get in
of
a
her.
couple D-list movies, and I
according to
can date
IMDb.
Anne Hathaway. That's not a bad deal.
Jack, you could make an IMBD. You were in the Big Play Super Bowl commercial.
That is true. That is true. I can make my IMBD 1 now.
He was also
Does
in
this count?
The West
No.
Wing, The Dukes of Hazzard, The Beginning,
He's in the Dukes of Hazzard?
The Gold Lunch, and Ricky and the Flash.
The Dukes of Hazzard was in like the 70s. How the hell is he dating Anne Hathaway?
Let me look.
Had to have been a kid, right?
Adam
There's
Yeah.
been
Schulman,
remakes.
He's 43, so he's only a year old.
Okay.
Jack, it seems like they have a very normal and very happy relationship.
Max, are you a movie guy at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, give me. I'm not gonna be that guy that says best movie ever.
Best Adam Schulman movie.
Yeah, best.
Give me
Of the
like,
five that I just
top
read.
3, top 5 movies.
My personal favorite movie is The Departed.
Yeah.
I love The
From
Departed.
Boston
I'm
as
from
well. I
Boston,
think we should
so
know.
that little bit of bias.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Film.
Yeah, I love a lot of Mark Wahlberg movies. Dodgeball is always a classic. I love
Yes.
Dodgeball. I think if I can branch out into like the animated movie world too.
Shrek 2 I just watched, by the way. Forgot
is
how
good.
good it was. Shout out
Okay.
Michael Myers.
Pixar or DreamWorks though? That's the real question. What do you guys think?
I
Oh.
think Pixar.
Mm,
Oh,
I-
no.
I would say.
Can
I
you
just
run
said
me through
Shrek.
the?
I just
I'm
said
I'm
Shrek.
sorry. Like, what are the DreamWorks? Like, can you run me
Pixar-
through the like?
Pixar's like Toy
Pixar's like
Story.
Cars,
Story,
Toy Story. What's
Cars.
DreamWorks is like Shrek, right?
Shrek.
Over the Hedge, I think, is DreamWorks.
Yeah.
Kung
I'm
Fu Panda?
Pretty sure Despicable Me
DreamWorks.
is also
Despicable Me.
DreamWorks.
Oh, I got
Madagascar
Pixar
is
clearing.
DreamWorks.
I got Pixar.
Pixar, yeah.
Pixar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's close. It's
It is
close. All right. Before we head out of here, Nick, I'm sad to say, but we all saw the video of Kodak Black, and you wanted to talk about this. I mean, I don't have volume on this, but
No, that's fine. It doesn't really need volume. I kind of didn't even want to play this because it's just so upsetting. Like, and I think it's like, Kodak is an easy character to poke fun of because it's kind of drugs and kind of being pumped up on drugs is kind of his whole thing. But you see this video of him that's going out there, and you see these guys that are like almost like surrounding him, making fun of him. Like, this is what the world needs way less of. Like, whoever filmed this was just doing it for a drop of social media clout. And I get that, like, things go both ways. So, like, Kodak has to agree to help, but, like, don't do this to him. Like, don't sit next to him with your cell phone cameras out. And, like there's obviously an individual here that's, like, at his lowest, and at his worst possible day. Like, don't make a spectacle of him, like he's a human being. So I was just super upset. I love Kodak's music. Like I'm saying here, like, from the onset, we knew that he's a guy that likes drugs and a lot more than just, legal recreational drugs. But I hated seeing him like that. Like, I hated that video.
this unfortunately reminded me of, because we're in here in Cleveland, all the videos of Delonte West.
Yeah,
And you see him like at the gas stations, all strung out, and you just wish the best for him. It is crazy, man. All right, well, that wraps up the Big Factor today. Kind of crazy to end on that, but sorry, guys.
No. Yeah.
Jack
I could have
O'Rourke.
told a joke or something. We could have
got a
gotten
good
out
one?
there on a higher.
We got 4 nations face off.
Oh,
We
yeah,
started
dude,
on
yeah,
that.
yeah.
yeah. Starting tomorrow.
Max, are you a hockey guy at all?
I am hockey.
Okay, so
Okay.
me and Nick really aren't. Nick
No.
Nick knows more about hockey than I do.
I don't know.
And I don't know jack squat. So what is this?
So the 4 nations face-off is going down.
Do you know about
starting
this, Max?
Yeah.
starting tonight. I believe it's going to be on NHL Network, ESPN, and TNT. Maybe I think were the channels it's supposed to be on. It's basically the best 85. 90 players in the NHL playing for their home countries. Russia is not involved because of
That's
that
sweet.
doping scandal, you commies. But everyone else is good to go. USA, Canada, Sweden, and Finland. I believe Sweden and Canada play tonight, so that'll be fun. Then the United States get going tomorrow.
Gotta be. Who are the favorites in this? Canada, right?
I think
It's us in Canada, but it's also like people understand with hockey, like those European teams are disgusting too. Like there's a ton of amazing players from Sweden and Finland. I would say hockey of the 4 major sports is by far the most spread out diversity wise in terms of like what country people are from and like skill guys being from Europe and stuff. Like, but it's gonna be fun. I'm sure we'll get into it more later with USA and Finland specifically. But that's exciting to look forward to. USA, Canada.
So you a Bruins guy?
I am Bruins guy.
Okay, and they won. I'm like I said, this is gonna show my ignorance in hockey. They won when?
2011 was the last one.
Real? Oh wow! I thought they won more recently.
They lost a couple. They lost to Chicago. They lost to the Blues, which was like
That was a
heartbreaking.
heartbreaker. 2019,
That
yeah.
was horrible because they lost in Game 7 at home. I'm pretty sure too.
It was at home.
I will.
Chicago and St. Louis, but yeah, they've been back. Haven't won the big one.
I will wrap this bad thing up. Max, tell everyone where they can find your work.
At Loeb's Leads is my personal. Lots of sports content on there. Any Cleveland sports specifically. Honor the Land. HONOR the Land. That's where you can find me. All platforms: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever you guys like to use.
All right, you see it there. Loeb's Leads on X. Huge shout out to Max. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Nick. We'll be back tomorrow. Same people, same time. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your hump day. See ya.